fantastic. He is the man. He is the Ipswich historian. His name is Harold the Peacock, and he's going to talk about the Battle of Brisbane. G'day, Harold.
Good morning, Danny. Yeah, there's a lot happening in Brisbane, but it's an Ipswich connection that I'm not.
Yeah, you've actually come across this from a listener who showed you a family heirloom connected to the Battle of Brisbane.
Yeah, that's right. One of our listeners, Jacob, saw me metal detecting at Southport and came to say hello.
Yeah.
Now, you might remember Jacob from a couple of months ago. He particularly liked the Ipswich zombie story that I told you about.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, he said that he didn't know anything about his family history and that I should come look at his knife.
Well,
now, I'm always hoping.
when did he come look at his knife?
That's right. And the knife was a classic Bowie knife made by Western in the USA. It was 14 and a half inches long with a beautiful rosewood handle and an old patina, which was just so nice. I then also began researching his family history, and I found some stories that led straight back here to Ipswich in colonial days. Now, he had one ancestor who got run over by a dray here in Ipswich while walking along Wharf Street. Another ancestor was a fishmonger who was assaulted at Coolangatta while he tried to escape.
Hey.
Yeah, he tried to. That happened while he was trying to escape in his Model T Ford. And then later his house got burned down and he was arrested for having an unlicensed handgun. A different ancestor died when he fell off the wharf at South Brisbane. And then there was Jacob's grandfather. He was a singer at Wynnum and his name was Douglas Hunn. Now, he made headlines in the old Brisbane Truth newspaper when he left his wife and ran off with another woman.
Bludger.
But he was also the one who owned that Bowie knife.
Right.
And the story of how he got it is just amazing.
Yeah.
Now, before Doug Hunn started his singing career, he was a metal worker when he enlisted in the Australian Army in 1942 for the Second World War. He served in the radio section of Woolloongabba and was here for the Battle of Brisbane in November that year. Now, Danny, I think, well, you and I weren't there, but we certainly know about the Battle of Brisbane. It was a mass melee that was sparked when a group of Australian soldiers tried to defend an American mate from the American military police. Now, the fight raged for 2 nights.
Holy hell.
On the first night, 1 Australian was killed, 8 others were shot, and hundreds were injured. On the second night, the Australians were prepared, and 8 US MPs, 1 serviceman, and 4 officers were hospitalised, and hundreds of others injured. Now, details of the battle were largely suppressed, but Doug Hunn knew all about it. That's because he was actually at the Enoggera Army Hospital on the nights that the casualties were brought in.
Wow.
He left the very next day, and it seems, as the family story goes, he was keen to take up the cause. And so he got into a number of fights with the Americans, and that's how he got that historic Bowie knife.
Wow.
Now, Doug Hunn got discharged from the Army at Redbank in 1944, but that's not the connection to Ipswich.
Right.
You see, not long afterwards, Doug's brother, Frederick Hunn, was appointed as the assistant curate at Ipswich's St Paul's Church of England. He became super popular for his work with the CWA and the Boys Society there. In 1949, Fred made history by becoming the first priest to be ordained in the church. But just 3 days later, he was admitted to the Ipswich Hospital, where he died. Now, the Frederick Hunn was buried with his great-grandfather, Thomas Phoebe. And Phoebe was one of the very early pioneers of Ipswich, and you can see them both together on the same headstone in the Ipswich Pioneer Cemetery today.
Wow.
Now, Danny, like I always say, all roads lead to Ipswich. We're the centre of the universe here, and just because of a chance encounter with one of our listeners at Southport came the story of the American Bowie knife and the Battle of Brisbane, which led straight here to the Pioneers Cemetery in Ipswich. The listeners, we just got to be proud of the city we talk about.
It's a great city, and I think what the Americans were all sexed up. They had lots of money, they had a great uniform, and they were all sexed up, so they were stealing our women. And that's how the Battle of Brisbane started, I think.
Yeah, and it's probably going on today. But look, one more thing, Danny.
Yes.
Jacob has never seen his grandfather. So when I post this story online tomorrow morning, he'll be seeing photos of his grandfather for the very first time. He'll be seeing it at the same time as you will, Benny.
Gee, historyouthere.com. Mate, your research, you should be doing this for a living. You're so methodical in how you do it. I'm not making this up. You're brilliant. This is a brilliant segment. And, it's just unreal. So, historyouthere.com. Historyouthere.com. Check it out. And put a nice comment about all the effort that Harold the H. Peacock does for us each Saturday morning at about 8:15, live here on West Bremer Radio.